Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to welcome everyone who is watching us today to the CIGA's second webinar series, the Ramadan webinar series. We started that tradition last year, so we're very happy to have it also this year. And this series is going to be daily at 5:30 Istanbul time, which is about 2:30 GMT. I'm very pleased to inaugurate this series today with Istanbul Sabah ad-Din Zaim University, the university that our center is affiliated with, to be our first guest, Dr. Mehmet Bulut. Dr. Bulut is economic historian by profession, and he's been a rector now for about 8 years at Istanbul Sabah ad-Din Zaim University. And we will explore with him many ideas and many of his professional life, as well as the aspect of higher education, particularly in Turkey. And I'm also pleased to have with me my co-host, Awais Khan. Awais is a senior research associate here at CIGA. He's also a political theorist, and he's about to finish his PhD from Syracuse University. Welcome, Dr. Bulut.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sami Al-Aryan.
We are very pleased to have you. I want to start by asking you questions. Basically, if you go back, you were born in the early 70s, mashallah, and you've accomplished so much. And I want you to tell us about the time when you grew up. What was Turkey like, and what kind of education did you receive, and what impacted you the most as you were growing up in that era?
So thank you so much for inviting me to this program. I would like to also thank you for organizing this series second time. Last year, because of it was, the driving force was behind it, Corona, COVID-19. And, as Muslims, we believe in that something is happening and seems to us bad, but it can be, generate some khair. It can be seen for us good, but it can, generate some, good things. So, Alhamdulillah, Corona, COVID-19 forced us to organize these conferences as CIGA and Istanbul Sabah ad-Din Zaim University. And I really would like to thank you again so much for organizing these conferences. So, as you know, during 1970s, at that time in the world, there was very strong, campaigns against anti-imperialist movements in all of the world, in Europe and also in Turkey. During that times in Turkey, Turkey was in a kind of, in the middle of 20th century, Turkey first time experienced its democratic election. And the Democratic Party came to the power, and for 10 years they were in the power. Then first time he faced with a military coup in 1960s. And after that, till that time, there was a kind of in society trying to understand the system, how it works. And also, as you know, till 1970s, after the collapse of Ottoman Empire, except two countries, Turkey, Iran, and Afghanistan, all Muslim countries came under the occupation of the Western powers. And until 1970s, they continued to be independent. They were in war with the Western powers. And so that means when I was born during that time, OIC organizations and, how the Muslims can come together and how they can, reach to real independence maybe in war you can won the war, but on the table there are, intellectual independence in education, in culture, in, all economic, social, intellectual independence is important. During that times, I think in Islamic world, there is a big discussion on this issue. And in Turkey also, we are facing with a new moments and a new, a big discussion on the industrialization of Turkey at that time. If you would like to be independent, you must, realize a strong industry. You must build a strong industry in so many fields. So after that time, there are some coalitions, and Turkey faced with the war in Cyprus, with Greece, and it is again after the collapse of Ottoman Empire, and the Turks, Muslim Turks, faced with a big tragedy, starting from the Balkan Wars in the beginning of 20th century, then with First World War, and then Independence War in 1918, after 1918, and then they established an independent Republic of Turkey. So first time in 1974, Turkey faced with that, and nowadays there is a drama and a film on this issue on ERT1 in Turkey, right. And you can follow if you like this issue. So then, when these strong states like Turkey made a decision to establish their own industries, and as I tried to stress, to become a real independent, the big powers put some new programs for these countries. And Turkey, in between 1970s and 1980s, really faced with these issues. And the Turkish young generation divided to leftists and rightists.
And where were you? Were you on this side or that side?
So me, of course, I was a child at that time, but my, brothers and sisters and around us, it was, a reality. And at that time, my brother faced to some part. So I am also coming with a family, with a migration family from Balkan area. My grandfather was a kind of scholar. We called him Molla. Our, for a tribe in our village, we were called as a Mollaoğulları. And our, my grandmother is coming from the dervish. So one side is spiritual, the other side is on, the scholar. I am coming from that kind of family. And there was a huge, discussion as real strong secularism in Turkey. At that time, I had a big chance to speak with my grandfather, Molla Salih. He was really a very open-minded person, and with his religious education background, he was very strong. And I had a good chance to discuss so many things with him. And at that time, I asked him these questions, and also I had so many questions about the secularism, strict secularism in Turkey, and also about, the Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. And, it is very critical issue. And he, as a scholar, he explained me all details, but he said, do not focus on the discussion of the independence leader, because we were migrated from Balkans, and for Balkan people, independence was very critical. So to be to live in an independent state, and also for migrations, for immigrants, we came during the Ottoman times. My grandfather, they came in, we called 93 war, 93 Harbi, the war in between Turkey and Russia in 1878, After that time, Turkey faced with a huge war with, there is a very important Plevne War and the war between Ottoman Empire and Russia. During that time, our family migrated from Balkans. So this, for us, it was important to be in the school, in a good schools. But unfortunately, let me tell you that my grandfather didn't send his sons to the school because of the strict secularism. But fortunately, my father sent me, and my grandfather encouraged me because I went to Imam Khatib school at that time. After primary school, I went to Imam Khatib school, and then we at that time we faced with a new military coup in 1980s. During when I was growing, and my primary school and high school was in Çanakkale. Then during my high school, again, it was a good school, Biga Imam Hatip school in Çanakkale. It is very strong school, a long tradition on this school. And as you know,
so you had a religious education as you were growing up.
So let me tell you, it is a kind of combination, Dr. Sami. There we had religious education like tafsir, hadith, fiqh, the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also we had science, we had math, we had physics. It was a combination. It was a kind of the schools during Abdul Hamid time. He opened up, modern schools. We were taking all the courses what was in secular schools, but also we had Quran, Tafsir, Hadith, and others. It was a balance, and it is really a very important model. I would like to stress it. Turkey's innovation is this school. And I think for all Islamic world, we need this combination. We need a strong to know our tradition, our civilization, and also we need a strong mathematics. We need a strong, science, physics, chemistry, biology.
And even our scholars. I mean, our scholars combine both. I mean, the foundations were both in religious as well as other natural sciences, as well as social and philosophical sciences. Okay, let's go to Awais. He will probably have some questions as well. Awais.
Thank you, Dr. Bullet, for that introduction. It was very interesting. You said that your grandfather came to Turkey as an immigrant, but he was a scholar. He was a religious scholar. What was your childhood like with your grandfather, considering that he was probably probably may have been surprised by the fact of the secular direction that the foundation of the country was heading? I mean, for a Muslim person to both seek refuge and then find themselves in a very strange new world that is very different from maybe even the Balkans, where people maybe have been more religious than the kind of state ideology that was propagated under this new so-called independent.
Dr. Bulut, you're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, still muted. To English channel and unmute original audio. Okay, we're having some technical issue. We can't hear you. Still cannot hear you.
You have to change it to the English channel.
English channel and mute original audio. Is there something that is not right? Okay, it's still unclear. Something is wrong. Dr. Bulut, are you on English channel? Yeah, okay. If you need to be on English channel, and in the bottom it says mute original audio. Yeah, we still cannot hear you. Sometimes you may have to log off and on again for some reason.
Maybe we can take a technical break. Maybe we can take a break.
But try to go off and on. Try to log off and come back again. Okay, maybe when he come back again. It was very interesting, always, when he talked about that that timing. You know, he was born in 1971, which was right after a coup. And then that was very tense moment, but he also alluded to the fact that there were some elections. And then he was faced at 9 years of age with another coup, 1980, and you have all these things going on at the same time. It's interesting that he, you know, he talked about his grandfather being an immigrant also, but he.
Yeah, I mean, there's tension there between the idea of independence. There's an independent country being formed, but when he talks about real independence, it seems like it only happens later on in the Republic's history. So what was happening from the time of the formation of the Republic until, say, for instance, the 1960s, in which the world in which, I mean, you would imagine that a country that was established in the 1920s was independent. That's why someone like Dr. Bulut's grandfather came to Turkey.
Yeah, he's back now. Dr. Bulut, are you able to get back on English and mute original audio?
How is now? I am okay. I am hearing you.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you. Great. Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So the question is very good, and for the immigrants, it is very critical. And my grandfather's father migrated from Plovdiv, from Bulgaria, in towards the end of 19th century. By my grandfather and his father, my grandfather's father was also joining to the war in Dardanelles, you know, Çanakkale, or to big powers, and the Ottomans won. And it is, you know, a very important turning point in our history, in Turkish history. But my grandfather was the last student in the madrasa in Biga, in Çanakkale, in Biga. He was, during his time, the madrasas were closed in Turkey, as you know, during the Republican era. And, you know, the new elite followed very strong secularist way in Turkey during that time. And when they, you know, stopped down that madrasa, then he came to, you know, to his countryside and start to make, you know, some investment on agriculture and to some production. But also he was, you know, he was educating the people about Islam, and, you know, voluntarily. And he was, again, the voluntarily kind of imam in several places. So this story is, you know, very important to for the generation like me. The Muslims in Turkey faced with this kind of things, but with Imam Khatib schools, they started to join again to the educational system, and it was really a good opportunity, not just for males but also for females. it was very important. And after, these schools were started by, there is again a long story. We have now Saadettin Öktem. Professor Saadettin Öktem is at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. His father, Celal Öktem, was the first director for Imam Hatip schools. First time when they established this first, they opened this school in Istanbul.
When was the first one established, Dr. Buhr?
In 1950s, in 1951. But he was not easy. It was not easy. He stayed 1 month in Ankara. At that time, Prime Minister is Adnan Menderes. And Adnan Menderes, Prime Minister, accepted to open this school. And also the Minister of Education, he is Tevfik İleri at that time. He is also agreed on that. Imagine this Minister of Education is ready to open and Prime Minister is ready to open, but they could not do it. There is another authority for curriculum authority, we call. The head of curriculum authority in Ankara, he is against it. This Celal Hoca, Celal Öktem, stayed in Ankara. The Minister of Education is his student, Tevfik İleri. And again, at the last day, 1 month, he is staying in the hotel in Ankara. And last day, he made a decision to go as a to use the final opportunity to meet with the minister and explain to him it is impossible. When he visited his Minister of Education, Tevfik İleri, Tevfik İleri said that I am ready to open and Prime Minister has ordered to open. What we can do? The Minister of Education called to Prime Minister. Together they made a decision and they visited Prime Minister together, Adnan Menderes. And Adnan Menderes says that tomorrow at this time, I will come to the office of Minister of Education. You will be there with Minister of Education and we will invite the head authority for curriculum of Minister of Education. And they invited him, and in front of them, the Prime Minister signed to open these schools. So it is not easy, a very long process. And at that time, let me remind you that the establisher, the founder of Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University is İlim Yayma Foundation, you know. And before İlim Yayma Foundation, we had İlim Yayma Cemiyeti, İlim Yayma Association. So this association and this work made huge contribution in the establishment of these schools and also to the expansion in all cities in Turkey.
Dr. Sami, you're muted.
I want to get into the waqf and cash waqf issues later on in the discussion, but now I know that you've graduated from Imam Hatip School, then you went to college. I think you majored in economics, and then
Yes.
you got a bachelor's degree, and then you went to Europe. You actually had 2 master's degree, one from Turkey and one from Europe, and then you got your PhD as an economic historian. Tell us about this, and how did you find education in Europe versus education in Turkey, and how, since we talked about education, and how do you see the progress of education, where eventually you went through all the steps from assistant to associate to professor to dean, to you went through the whole 9 yards, as they say in the United States, and you've seen it from all angles, and now you're a rector of university.
So when I was, I graduated from Department of Economics in Izmir, 9 Eylül University. When I was in the 2nd year, till that time, my thinking was to be the governor of a city. At that time, from that schools, we had a kind of, our hero was the governors of the cities. Mm-hmm. So my intention was to become such kind of, person. administrator. But in second year, when I was in second year, very interesting, I had a Turkish economic history. And in that class, the professor is explaining that in all semester, he is explaining how the Ottoman economy was in stagnation and in declining. But we are looking to the map. In the map, we are seeing a huge empire in 3 continents. And step by step, there is establishment, there is then expansion, and there is a very long, period sustainability, and so many progress in economy, in social size, in ilm, in size, in madrasas. So we know something, but every time he is explaining about the stagnation and declining. So after that semester, I made a decision that I first have to understand what was the, what is this dilemma? This professor is explaining something in difference, but the map, it's in front of us. The map is explaining everything. Mm-hmm. It is not, year by year, century by century. In the map, you can see how the Ottoman borders are in extension, So, but, and from, the primary school, we faced with such kind of things. There was a kind of a paradigm that Eurocentric paradigm. The West started to rise and in expansion towards the end of 16th century. Then all the rest of the world started to decline, and also the Ottoman Empire. Mm. But we heard something. There is a golden age in 16th century. There are some, tulip era. It is a kind of rich times, It's about increasing the welfare. So there are some, dilemma. And I made a decision to focus on this issue and to make a research. And so from that time, I decided to learn first English, and then with Kashif Achan. He was 80 years at that year. Rahimahullah, he taught us a special series, learning English. We called Hornby series, pressed by Oxford University. It was first volume, and it was a kind of classical teaching, like madrasa system. So when, I finished the university and get degree, then decided to make master at the same university in Department of Economics. And when I joined to master program in Izmir, then I had to make decision to which city I will be in the future. There were 2 options for us, close to Istanbul or to Ankara at that time. My wife is just one daughter of his family. And his family was, my father-in-law was Mufti close to Istanbul, to Ankara at that time. And we made decision. I entered to 2 exams. One in Sakarya, at that time it was opened, close to Istanbul, and the other was in Kırıkkale, close to Ankara. And I succeeded in both exams, but made decision to close to Ankara, to the family of my wife, and joined to the university. And then when I finished my master at the same time, then started my PhD in Ankara. In Ankara, I finished graduated courses. In Turkey, you have to first finish the courses, then there is an oral exam.
Like the American system. It's very similar to the American system.
Yes, American system. I finished the courses. Then I decide to work on the core of the modern capitalist system, the core state of it was the Netherlands, the Dutch Republic, its relations with the Ottoman Empire. Till that time, there were research and publications about the Ottoman-British relations, but there was no any research on Ottoman-Dutch economic relations. I made a decision. My main interest was to understand the dynamics of Ottoman economy and the core of the capitalist system, the main dynamics of the capitalism. Yes.
And briefly, what were your findings?
So it was, from second-hand reading, I reached to these questions, but then make a decision. I need to make a research in the archives, both in Istanbul and in Dutch archives. I first came to Istanbul. In Ankara, I finished course, and when I was working, I made decision to work in the archives in Istanbul. I also joined a new PhD program at Marmara University in Istanbul. The program was PhD program on economic history. And I succeeded that exams also, joined to the program, and finished that courses also. This is my second PhD. And also succeed the overall exam. Then I have to go now to the Dutch, to the Netherlands. And after finishing these two universities, in Ankara one, in Istanbul, and succeeded all the exams and overall exams, I can give my thesis to both universities, to Ankara and to Istanbul. Then I went to the Netherlands. I first was accepted by Peter Klein and Alexander de Groot at Leiden University. But then I had another application to Utrecht University. And at that time, Jan Lutem van Zanden, Professor Jan Lutem, was a brilliant economic historian. He was the Secretary General of World Economic History Congress at that time. A very brilliant scholar and young man. Peter Klein was retired at that time. And I moved to the Netherlands. Then I finished, so he accepted all my courses and my works. Then we finished our PhD in the Utrecht University. And I got my degree from Utrecht University. Then when he asked me, do you need any position here in the Netherlands? And I told him I have to go to Turkey. And he was surprised because he said to me that all students, when they finished PhD, they want to stay in the Western countries, but you don't want to stay. Why? Because I told him, and this was my believing, we have to serve to our countries, or first, especially in social science. We could not, import social scientists, intellectuals, but we can import technical persons. It is easy, but for social science, and this was my real belief, and I came to Ankara at that time, and at Tashkent University, I started to teach at Tashkent University till 2008. Then I went to Cambridge University for a visiting scholar in 2008. Then in 2010, I went to Harvard to Middle Eastern Studies, again with scholarship. And then in 2013, before coming to Israel, I was at Princeton in Institute for Advanced Studies. I have been to these universities, and in 2011, I left from Tashkent University and joined to Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University. It was the state university, public university, started as the Dean of Faculty of Political Science and Vice Rector then. Then in 2013, I was invited to Istanbul, Sabahattin Zaim University, and from that time I came here. So my area is economic history, but my main problem is to try to understand the dynamics of the development of these two different worlds, Western European capitalists and the Ottoman world. This was my main, first mentality, then structure, then institutions. Another thing was, day by day, we understood that when the Europeans were in expansion, they start to expand to Africa, Asia, and America.
You mean colonialism?
This expansion start, after the middle of 15th century.
You're talking about colonialism, the colonialism.
Yeah. But in 1453, the Ottomans conquered Istanbul.
Right.
And we have seen this conquering of Istanbul. This is a very important dynamic, external dynamics for European expansion to the world, and they, after this conquering of Istanbul by the Ottomans, they start to think that if the Ottomans conquered Istanbul, the capital of Byzantine Empire, this is the Roman Empire, Second Roman Empire, they can easily conquer the rest of the Europe. And they made a decision to not face-to-face to fight with the Ottomans, to resist, but around Africa, to reach to the east and to find some coalitions against the Ottomans to resist. So they start to make a huge investment to ship buildings, big ships. And with that ships, they reached around Cape Town to Africa, to Asia.
Dr. Bullock, can I intervene here for a second? Because I want to get into these, your understanding of the development of economy. But before we go on to that section, you had spoken about about our school, our university, Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University, and about specifically Dr. Sabahattin Zaim himself. Could you tell us a little bit about Sabahattin Zaim and his influence on your study of economics and the influence on him amongst young Muslim economists in Turkey and the Muslim world?
So Sabahattin Zaim, rahimahullah, was, a leader, academician in Islamic economics and in social work in Turkey. He has a textbook on social work. He was a professor at Istanbul University, and on social work, the most important book belongs to Sabahattin Zaim. And in all the beginning of chapters, there was a verses from the Quran in his book. During, can you imagine in 1960s, 1970s, I gave you some, the atmosphere in Turkey, but he was an authority on this issue, and all the other departments were teach his books. And
are you saying sociology or social work?
Social work. Sosyal çalışma ekonomisi, we call it in Turkey. It is in relation between the social life and economy,
Okay.
So çalışma ekonomisi, we call it in Turkey. Industrial relations, it's relating to that issues. And he was also the representative of Turkey in the first Islamic Economics and Finance Congress in Mecca in 1976. In Turkey, with Necmettin Erbakan, in political life, from 1970s again, his main program was to establish a kind of a system on, the just order. They called later on just order, and the economy without interest. Sabahattin Zaim in academia was the leader on this issue, and he was the first representative in that Congress. As you know, last year in 2020, he organized 12 International Congress on Islamic Economics and Finance in Istanbul, Sabahattin Zaim University. And the first one was in Mecca in 1976, and Sabahattin Zaim was the representative of Turkey, Nakib El Attas from Malaysia, and from all these countries, there were some representatives.
Are the proceedings of these conferences available to our viewers?
Yes. Till ours, it's available, but ours are now under the publishing. Some papers are selected for some journals, but proceedings is coming, inshallah, soon.
For all of the conferences since 1970? Or
yes, there are. Yes, there are.
Okay.
Yeah, there are.
Dr. Bulut, when you mentioned Erbakan, I couldn't resist but ask you about the influence of Erbakan upon your generation. And looking back about, obviously you mentioned 74, he was deputy, I think, prime minister at the time. And then certainly the AKP came out of that experience, political experience. He certainly had a great impact on Turkey. If you can tell us a little bit about his impact and particularly on your generation.
So, let me finish this Sabahattin Zaim and its connection. I will come in connect with your question, inshallah. Sabahattin Zaim was a professor in Istanbul University. Then he was very active person in NGOs like our foundation, İlim Yayma Foundation, and the other foundations, VACs. And he was also active in some, institutions such as the industrial organizations and to CIGA. And also he was also the dean in Sakarya University. Then he became the member of Turkish Higher Education Council. So when I was assistant, first time joined to the university, he visited our university at that time. And before that, we met with him, but at that meeting, we made a very good conversation with him and speak about Islamic economics. And later on, our conversation continued with him. And when we ask anything, it doesn't matter what kind of question you are asking, but he was taking everything very seriously. And he was really very good person. By personality, very good example for all academicians, for all Muslims, a very good gentleman and a very strong scholar on the issues and very encouraged person to work on that. At that time, we requested from him to give a message to our rector at that time to send us abroad for getting some better experience in good universities. And he strongly underlined this issue in his speech towards the rector at that time. So he was a very good person. And so now in academia, there were very limited people like Sabahattin Zaim. And Necmettin Erbakan was also a professor of engineering at Istanbul Technical University, And in his 40s, he has done his PhD in Aachen University in Germany, and he was really very strong person in science, very innovative and very brilliant, and he had very good students at Istanbul Technical University. Then he made a decision, to be in the politics. When the time at that time, I was trying to explain you that atmosphere. In Turkey, the people of Turkey needs a new leadership, to real independence, intellectual independence, economic independence, social independence, institutional independence, because Turkey was under the control at that time by the powers or some powers in Turkey connected with, with the big powers. So for real independence, he, made a decision to join to the party, to Democrat Party, but they refused him, and he first elected as independent member of the parliament from Konya. Then he established his own party, Milli Nizam Partisi, the National Order Party, the National Order. But in his first, mission, he was focusing on this issue: the religious independence, the freedom of religion, freedom in faith, freedom in practice. Freedom was very critical at that time because there was a pressure, very strong secularism. And also he has very strong program on industry, industrialization. And he was believing that without established independence defense industry, it is impossible to be independent.
That's very strange, Dr. Bullet, because what we hear a lot in the narrative, maybe this is a false narrative, but a narrative that we hear is that in 1924, Turkey became independent, and due to a highly secular program, Turkey was able to, unlike others in its neighborhood, was able to establish an industrialized modern republic. But what you're telling me is that it wasn't until the 1960s that there was a real serious program for industrialization, which is odd considering that industrialization, as you know, in Europe had already begun well into the 19th century. So what exactly are we missing in this picture? You're saying that real independence happened in the 60s? I mean, we thought that we became independent in 1924. So what exactly are we missing here from this 40-odd year period?
So this is very good questions for all economic historians. My master thesis in Turkey is the economic development during the time of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, in between 1933 and 1938. At that time, the first era till first big economic crisis of the world, 1929, there is an open market economy, Great Depression. There is no very serious economic program. But after this Great Depression, as you know, the programs in United States are like New Deal, and in Western countries, the state, the government intervention programs exist. And in Turkey, we have at that time the planned economy. We had two planned economic plans at that time, and we have some investments in some manufacturers on textiles and also on steel industries. The first plan was very successful, I would say, but later on, especially after the Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, in the following time, the economic development was not very successful till the democratic government. The first elected democratic government, as you know, in democratic system was a Democrat Party under the leadership of Adnan Menderes, and in his time, there is a very, a kind of liberal economic program, very interesting, I would say. Towards the end of his time, he was planning to establish some car factories in Turkey, like Ford factory, and they decided with some foreign investors, but when the military coup exists and when the army controlled the government, and then they established a trial for them, all these programs stopped. And after that time, these factories were established in Germany. So we are thinking that Turkey at that time, if we could not face with military coup, from that time, from middle of 19th century, maybe with this, the democratic governments, because there was, this was the first time Turkey faced with real democracy in the middle of 20th century. In the Ottoman times, democratization started. There were several parties in the parliament during the Abdülhamit era, before that, in the last period of Ottoman Empire. But during the Republican time till the middle of 20th century, there was just one party. There was no, choice for the people. But from the middle of 20th century, we faced with a real democratic process in Turkey. So if military coup could not exist, and this is, a very big disadvantage for the countries like Turkey. It was a kind of different controlling the system.
So was the military coup, let me understand, so was the military coup and the single party system a kind of underdevelopment from an economic perspective in your?
In my perspective, yes. If there is no democracy, if there is no, freedom for entrepreneurship, for speech, for religion, for everything, you cannot face the economic development. You cannot. So, and
that's very strange, Dr. Bullet. I mean, we heard, especially, certain histories of Turkey, especially at that time, right? So coverage of Turkey was showing that, look, Turkey is different from the rest of the Muslim world in that it has accepted a modern, westernized form of government, and therefore it is a lot more advanced than other countries. However, what you're saying is, the numbers don't match up. You're saying that actually there's ebbs and flows in this period, and in some parts of it there was some success, but largely until 1950 we have a country that is underdeveloped. We have a large underdevelopment going on. And as you know, Walter Rodney in his History of Colonialization has explained that colonial intervention in Africa and Asia was not development, but rather underdevelopment of those economies. So there's almost a kind of lack of freedom and underdevelopment go hand in hand.
So the point is very clear. If you could not use all the resources that you have in the economy, labor force, capital, and the other sources, you could not, there is a potential GDP and there is real GDP. You are not using your potential, So this is, if you can construct an economic model based on the values, on the believing system on the heritage of your geography, your society, then you can use all the sources. You can join all the sources to the economic development. But if if you cannot construct a good economic development model to combine and to collect all the sources to the development process, to growth process, you cannot realize the development.
Dr. Sami, I'd like to ask one more thing here, and then maybe we could move to our second segment. You said earlier, this was very interesting, fascinating. You said that the Ottoman capturing, the capturing of Istanbul was a pivotal moment in history, in that at the same time that Europe was expanding, it was also the case that the Ottomans were also expanding. So we have almost two trajectories of development, two trajectories of modernities, we may say, unfolding at the same time. We have the Ottoman model that is going from growth to more growth, and we have a certain kind of European development out of the Iberian Peninsula, moving from growth to more growth. Now, but eventually we see in hindsight that the Ottoman model failed to take its place in world history, but rather it was eclipsed by colonialism and colonial expansion and capitalistic development. Can you please explain to us what's the relationship between this, these alternative, first of all, did I understand that correctly when you said that there's a kind of paradox, that the Ottomans are expanding at the same time that the Europeans are expanding? First of all, I'd like for you to return to that topic.
Okay, so I have an article on this issue, Mohammed Uwais, the time of European expansion and the Ottoman extension. So it is, the Eurocentric paradigm is the Western expansion and the rest is in decline, So my understanding until now is the Ottomans, at the same time, when Europe expanded in all of the world, in Africa, Asia, and American continent, and they took under the control of these continents, the Ottomans were extending in 3 continents, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. And they were controlling the core of the civilizations. This core around the Mediterranean, Freestyle Crescent region. So the models are different. Now we need to ask new questions. The question is how the Ottomans sustain in long term when the European capitalist nation states controlled all Africa, Asia, and American continent, except the Ottomans. Ottomans were close to Europeans. They were neighbors, but the Ottomans sustained, and we know there are, new research show us that in 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, there is no any difference between the Ottoman economic development and Europe, except the Netherlands, very small country, and UK in the island. When you compare to the rest of Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, huge Europe, and the rest of the world, there is no any difference between the Ottoman Empire and Ottomans. In the archival documents show us that till the middle of 20th century, there is no any big difference in the agricultural productivity also between Europe and Ottoman. And Ottoman productivity is higher, again, except 2 countries, the Netherlands and UK. So this is a huge success. We first have to understand how the Ottomans in this huge geography, agency, Black Sea, Mediterranean is like a kind of lake. And today we have more than 40 countries in this region. In these modern times, we are not speaking about the Middle Ages or Asian times. We are speaking a very dynamic times, modern times, European expansion, colonialism, industrialization process. The Ottomans established a system and there is a sustainability and they provide all the necessities of the people who are living in their cities, in their society, and they established a system in agricultural side for all families. There are a chiefliks, production units, nearby 100 dönums we called, for all families, it is enough. And we have seen that in Ottoman Empire, till 19th century, we could not find any Muslim to give zakat. Zakat is given to poor people. There is no poor. Again, in the middle of, 19th century, in Ottoman cities, there are no such kind of poor people or sleeping, lying people on the street. But when we read the book of Karl Marx, in London, in industrialized world, we have seen with so many poor. So it is a huge issue. But
Dr. Bullet, can I ask you, you said something that you almost said Ottoman is different from capitalist.
It is different.
Countries. Can you explain that difference to us very briefly?
I just want to say we got 10 minutes and I got 2 more questions, so we need to be
Okay, very good. Just the main difference is in Ottoman economy, the main economic actor is brotherhood mentality. We call it ukhuwet system. Brotherhood mentality is all humanity are coming from same family. We are brothers and sisters in creation or in believing system, in religion. So the Ottoman elite's main aim is to realize for all Ibadullah'ın terfi ahvali they call, to raise the situation of all people who are living under their borders. So this is the main, mentality. And in the West, we are facing with homo economicus. This person, this economic actor, is believing that its needs are unlimited. Desires can be unlimited, but needs are limited. We know it. But they believe that needs are unlimited, but sources are limited. So European sources or the sources in their borders is not enough. They need exploitation. And with expansion of the Europe in that time, what we are facing with a new ethics, with a new law in Europe. They do not respect to the others, and the state support this mentality and these merchants, these economic entrepreneurs. Think about East India Company. Uwais, this story. In India, in Indian continent, East India Company has garrison from the soldiers of its own state. What is the role of the soldiers for a company? What does it mean? So without state intervention and support this process, this economic development process, this merchant capitalism, we could not understand the reality in the West. But come to the Ottoman side, the mentality is different and the ruling elite aims are very different. State share in economy is 30%, private side share in economy is 30%, and we have third sector as Vakf sector. Vakf sector is very important.
That's very good, Dr. Balut, because that's the topic I want to get to, and we have like 8 minutes left. And I want to do 4 minutes on this and 4 minutes on the last subject, which is basically higher education in Turkey, since you are a rector of university. So you are an authority on Waqf, particularly cash Waqf. Can you in 4 minutes tell us what is so unique about cash Waqf and Waqf in today's economy and in the development of our societies?
So very good. This is my new book I finished on Ottoman cash Waqfs in Europe.
Yes.
We prepared 15 volumes. It was first 12 volumes, but now it is 14 volumes. First 3 volumes are, one is a summary of the project, a summary with graphs, with, it's in Turkish. The second one is full in English, and the other one is in Arabic. So all scholars from all of the world can benefit from these sources. And the other volumes, in all, we collected all archival documents. In Ottoman archives, we have 100 million documents, We collected this cash Waqf. This is just cash Waqfs, more than 1,000 documents just from Ottoman Europe. Today's 10 countries in Europe. We collected all this. This is just cash Waqfs. We translated to modern Turkish these documents and also put, again, for all documents, 3 summaries, abstracts, English,
so what
Turkish.
is so unique about cash Waqf for the layman person?
So I am telling you now, cash Waqf is the original Ottoman invention. Waqfs can be established on real property, but
Waqf,
the Ottomans,
for the people, for our listeners, Waqf is like endowment.
Yes, endowment. But the Ottomans first time established the cash Waqfs, because in the middle from the middle of 15th century, we have seen a new system was established under the establishment in the Western world. And there is a capitalism based on interest, usury. The Ottomans established a system without usury. This cash Waqf financing system is based on the Waqf. You are donating your money, you are making Waqf, and Waqf is giving your money for credit to entrepreneurs. And with these Waqfs, they are generating profit, The profit is shared between Waqf and entrepreneurs. The Waqf share is going to the education, to scholars, to research, to hospital, to social utilities, So the Ottomans first time accepted banks with interest with Ottoman Bank in the second half of 19th century. Till that time, they do not accept the banks with interest. And the first Ottoman Bank was established by foreigners, not by Muslims, by foreigners, by non-Muslims, French and British. So in the Ottoman times, they continued to, finance the economy with this Waqf, not just economy, but
Dr.
also
Balut,
social life.
What happened with all these Waqfs? Why, are all of these Waqfs documented? There was Awqafs in Jerusalem, there's Awqafs in Medina, there's established by Muslims all over the world. All these Awqafs documented. Do we have legal procedures in different countries to sue countries for taking this wealth? Do we have enough legal documents, like the work that you have presented in all different countries, to go before the UN or go before before international bodies to make a case on behalf of Muslims' wealth? Is there a way to procure this money back from places like Turkey, Lebanon, Iraq? Do we have enough documentation for this, or is this still something we need to do?
Very good. We worked 10 years on this project with 20 scholars together. And at the end of project, we made a journey to Europe to see what happened to these Waqfs. So when we visited these 10 countries, unfortunately, let me tell you, for all cities, under the Ottoman control, the central part of city belongs to the Waqf, because there is a rent. There is a huge rent in the city center. The Ottomans do not send this rent to any economic class, but they distribute it to all society by the Waqf system. Main difference between socialism and capitalism. In the Ottoman city centers, the shops, the city center shops belongs to the Waqfs, and the Waqfs belongs to the whole society, So nowadays, in all cities,
is it all societies, or is it based on the millet?
There is millet system, but what does it mean by society? The Waqf sources, the Waqf income is used for education, for health sector, for, it is for the increasing the economic and welfare situation of the society, all society, Ibadullah'ın terfi ahvali. Please keep in mind, this is, Arabic and Turkish. The main aim of Ottoman rulers is to increase the economic situation of all people in their society. No division between Muslim and non-Muslim.
Dr. Bulut, we have to invite you to give us a full lecture on cash waqf. I have only a minute and a half left, and I can't pass this. I wanted to tell us about the state of higher education in Turkey, and then maybe one word about ESO and its progress under your leadership for the past 8 years. 2 minutes, if possible.
Okay. So, Turkish education system, higher education system is really improving. Till 2000, Turkey has 75 universities, but now Turkey has 208 universities. There is a huge development in recent 19-20 years, and especially on Waqf universities. We have two models: public universities funded by the state, by the government, and Waqf universities. They are a kind of private, but they belongs to the Waqf. In Turkey, we do not have private university. So this is a good, opportunity to, to improving the system. And Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University is one of the best example for a real Waqf universities. It was founded, established by İlim Yayma Foundation. And the main aim of this foundation is to extending the ilm, science, support the scholars, the students in all parts of Turkey, in all cities. And Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University was established in 2010, but now we reached more than 11,000 students. We have 3,500 graduate students, 25 PhD programs, 70 master programs, and we have 7,500 undergraduate students and 36 undergraduate programs. And we have, fortunately, more than 90 different countries, 90, nearby 2,500 students. And we have very strong research centers like CIGA, like Islamic economics and finance, like civilization studies. And our main mission is to focus on a good, on earnings must be halal and eatings must be halal.
Mashallah.
So Islamic economics and halal industry, Islamic finance. So economy without exploitation, a just order in Turkey and in all of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was very enlightening, very entertaining, and really benefited me personally, and I'm sure our audience as well. So I want to thank you.
Thank you
You
very much.
inaugurated our program. I want to thank you for being with us, and certainly we will invite you to discuss the cash waqf and other topics. Thank you always also.
By the way, as last message, I would like to mention about my 3 new books. One is on, the title is Ottoman World and Western Economy. And the second one is, the first one, it was published, Ottoman World and Western Economy, Civilization, Ethics and Economics. And the second one is on the developments from economic developments from Ottoman times to present time. And the last one is the ethics of economics. And one edition book on Islamic economic thinking, Islamic economic thought, history of Islamic economic thought. Thank you so much, and I wish you a good and healthy Ramadan. Barakallahu feek.
Thank you. We have to invite you several times, not just once. We have a lot of these books. So I want to tell everybody Ramadan Mubarak. Tonight is the eve of Ramadan. Tomorrow, everybody will be fasting, hopefully, and enjoying the spirit of Ramadan. Tomorrow's program, we will have Professor John Esposito. And as you know, he is one of the most famous authors in the United States when it comes to Islamic thought and Islamic studies, a very prolific author. We'll also have Professor Awamir Anjum, who will also be with me discussing the life and accomplishments and books and thoughts of Dr. Esposito. I want to again thank Dr. Balut and thank my co-host Awais. And I want to wish you again blessed Ramadan. We're gonna be off now, but I want Dr. Balut just to stay a few minutes, if he can, to discuss future things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.